Everybody, this is Tracy here with another edition of A View from Tracy's Point. And we are here to talk about the family feud between Wendy Williams and her little brother, Tommie. So Wendy is my age, I believe, and Tommie is a couple of years younger than her, or maybe 3 years younger than her. But in any event, you guys know that Wendy's mom passed away back in, well, Wendy told us that her mom passed away back on December 7th. And according to Wendy, if you saw the video that I did, her mother passed weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks ago, that it had been so long ago that Wendy didn't remember the date. Well, after Wendy made that statement on her TV show, her brother came out with a video and said that the mother had recently passed. And then the news about the mother passing actually came out because one of the mother's friends' daughter posted it on Instagram, and a lot of the bloggers picked it up and ran with the story. But it took Wendy, that happening, for Wendy to actually come forward and say that her mother had passed away. So Wendy ended up going on hiatus after she made that announcement because it was obvious that she couldn't hold it together much longer. An obituary came out that I saw in the Miami Sun-Sentinel, I think it's called, and they said that Wendy's mom passed on November 29th and that there would be a private ceremony or private tribute later on down the road. Well, that tribute, I guess, took place recently because all hell done broke loose, y'all. So Wendy's brother, Tommie, came out with a video stating that Wendy didn't attend their mother's funeral. Now, I don't know why Tommie would feel the need to go public with this information. I don't know why he thought we needed to have this information, but he did, and Wendy decided to respond. And she basically told Tommie that he needed to shut his mouth because there was a whole lot that she could say about him, and she has receipts. So he needed to zip it up, before she spills the tea on him. So Tommie, in return, responded to Wendy coming on her show, addressing him about his video that he posted on YouTube. So the next day, Wendy clapped back and, gave him another thrashing, like, you need to shut up. This isn't for public consumption. And then Wendy went into more detail about what actually transpired. So before we get into what happened at the actual service, here's a little bit about Wendy's brother and his YouTube channel. So he started the YouTube channel about 2 years ago. He did one introductory video, and it was interesting that in the introductory video, he titled it Wendy Williams' Brother. And so then he didn't make any more videos for 2 years, and then all of a sudden he pops back up, and in November, the first part of November, and he does a video, and the video was basically saying, the title was Wendy Williams, Brother Still Fighting COVID. Now, if you notice, he keeps putting Wendy Williams' name in the titles of his videos. The videos aren't about Wendy, they're about you, dude. So why are you trying to capitalize off of your sister's name? And several people in the comments were telling him, they're like, you have, a nice personality, you're outgoing, you have good content. Stop using your sister's name, create your own foundation, and start your own thing. And so throughout the past 2 or 3 months that he's been doing videos on a regular basis, he has a bunch of them out there now, he, continues to say that he is going to start a show. He's going to start the Tommie Williams show. So I'm like, okay, the Wendy Williams show, the Tommie Williams show. Did he ask Wendy to help him start a talk show and Wendy refused? And that's why he's upset and acting this way? It just didn't make sense. So the first video that he did when he's talking about COVID, he admits that he has COVID. He says that it was so bad that he was hospitalized, and at a certain point he was actually on a ventilator. Now, this is interesting because I was reading on one of the blogs when the story first broke about Wendy's mom passing away. It didn't say how she passed, but then after Wendy came forward, she didn't say whether the mom had been ill or if she just died peacefully. So people started to speculate that, something else must have been going on, that Wendy wanted to keep it a secret. And so in the comments, somebody said, well, her brother had COVID, and it's believed that the brother gave COVID to the mother, and that's what happened to the mother. Now, there is no confirmation that that is how Wendy's mother passed away, but I found it very interesting that the first video he did was on November 8th. The mother passed away on November 29th, and in that video, he states that he had been spending time with his parents during his illness. So it is definitely feasible to think that maybe the mother did contract it, and that is what ultimately happened. And then that could be a reason that Wendy is so angry and outraged about what's going on. So here's a little bit about the controversial video that he said. And you guys, of course, can go over to his channel, Tommie Williams. Normally I would plug the video up top here, but because of this back and forth, I'm not going to do that. So he basically says, feeling crazy right now. Wendy, this video is for you. Unfortunately, I just got off the phone with Daddy. Didn't watch the movie this morning. I didn't watch the show this morning. I'm sorry. But he watched it this evening, and he's very upset and very disappointed. Naturally, really, this shouldn't be happening. It's crazy right now. Absolutely crazy. I asked you one question. Why didn't you go to the funeral? Why couldn't you call Daddy and let him know? Why couldn't you, if it was that serious? And so he's talking about, the fact that the dad is upset that Wendy didn't attend the mother's funeral. He goes on to say that Wendy contacted the dad and told the dad that she was coming for the viewing and that she had to fly back to New York and wouldn't be there for the actual funeral. Now, in Wendy's response to him, and I had to listen to Wendy very, very carefully because, the details, the details are in the words that people use. So in Wendy's response to Tommie, Wendy never says she went to the funeral. Wendy says that they were at the funeral home. They were at the service. She never says they were at the funeral, that they were at the service, and that all hell broke loose, that Tommie got into an altercation with a younger family member who I'm assuming must be one of her nephews. And let me plug this in here. Tommie was very rude on one of his videos. His wife came in the room, who is in the house with him quarantining while he has COVID. And she asked him, who was he on the phone with? And he was very nasty, very rude, very disrespectful to her. And at one point, was telling her, can you close the door? Can you close the door? He wouldn't tell her that he was on live doing this video. And then he was like, oh, she probably, trying to figure out who I'm, talking to. And then he get up at one point and goes and close the door. And he kept saying throughout the video how, he's not a controversial guy. He doesn't like trouble. But then he says that he does have a tendency to flip off at the mouth and say things that he shouldn't say. And so this is one of those times, Tommie, when you're saying something that you shouldn't be saying. So Wendy says that they had this confrontation and that her ex-husband Kevin was there, because, and I don't have a problem with Kevin being there. A lot of people, I'm seeing, various opinions. My thing is this: Wendy was married for over 20 years. So her husband is like a son to her parents, okay? And it doesn't matter what happened between Wendy and Big Kev. If he had a good relationship with her parents, I can understand him being there. And just because they're no longer together and somebody passes away doesn't mean that he doesn't get to come to the funeral. So people need to knock that off. And so Kevin, I guess, after going, him and Wendy having a conversation, Big Kev took it upon himself to go and intervene and to get Tommie and whoever this younger male relative, this 20-something-year-old relative, out of the funeral parlor, I guess. And now the reason this was important is because, like I said, paying attention to Wendy's wording, she never said funeral. She kept saying it was a service and that it was at the funeral home and that, they almost knocked the casket over. The mom was in the casket. They almost knocked the casket over. And I guess the people from the funeral home, had to come and stand between Tommie and the casket, right? So they didn't knock the casket over. And then she started talking about people coming into the building. She went to the bathroom and then she said she couldn't think of the name. She kept saying, instead of going, she said, how you go after the service, you go back to the house and you have the collard greens and rice and all of that. She said, instead of going back to the house, her, Kevin, and Big Kevin decided to go and have lunch or have dinner or something. They decided to go to this restaurant. Now, what this sounds like to me, we all know if you black, okay, I don't know what the white folks be doing, but black folks, the day before the funeral, which is usually a Friday, most black people get funeralized on a Saturday. So on Friday, we have what is called, what you guys? A wake. We have a viewing and we have a wake. The viewing usually starts at about 3 p.m., right? And then from 3 to 7, anybody can walk into the funeral home and view the body. If it's going to be like they expect a whole bunch of people, they'll take the body to the church on Friday. But in most instances, the body is laid out on Friday, 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. Anybody can walk in and view the body. Sometimes the family is there. Sometimes the family is not there. At 7 p.m. is when the family shows up. So Wendy said on her show that the sisters from the AKA, the Pearl sisters, that they were coming in as she was going to the bathroom to straighten her face and pull herself together. So she didn't say people were lining up, because remember at the black funeral, we line up, right? And then the family walks into the church at the same time. Or if you're having the funeral at the funeral home, the family still lines up and walks in after everybody has been seated. But Wendy said these people was just, walking in on their own, which lets me know that this was a viewing / wake and not the actual funeral. At 7 p.m., that's when the family comes in. And then there is a pastor, right? Or somebody who's a speaker. They will get up and they will do a mini sermon. It's like a mini sermonette, but they basically talk to the family and talk to any other visitors or people that were there who wanted to stick around. And they do this little mini service and prayer. And then afterwards, you typically go back to Big Mama house, right? Or you go back to whatever family member is hosting dinner. The family goes back to that house and you eat, you sit around, you talk, and you laugh, right? That's what we do at black funerals. Then on Saturday, the family typically lines back up at whoever's house that was that did the dinner after the wake. And then you drive in a procession to the church where the funeral is going to take place. You have the funeral, you go to the cemetery for the interment, or if they are going to be cremated, sometimes they'll release doves or balloons or something at the church. And then you have what is called a repast. And at the repast, You don't go to somebody's house typically. You either have the repast at the fellowship hall of the church, or you rent out a place to have it, like a recreation center or something like that. You typically do not, black people, now remember this black people funeral we're talking about, you typically don't go back to somebody's house for the repast. You typically go to a public place. That way, anybody who attended the funeral can come to the repast, right? You don't want all those people at your house. So the fact that Wendy kept saying that it was a service instead of a funeral, that they were going to somebody's house. I believe it was the sister Wanda. They were going to her house after the service, but they decided to go and have lunch or dinner. That lets me know that if there were two services, Wendy did not go to her mother's funeral. And that is okay. Some people just can't deal, right? Like if you're already upset, like some people are so upset that they really, the thought of seeing someone that they love as much as we love a mother or a father is just too painful. I know people who haven't gone to their parents' funerals. I know people that haven't gone to their children, like if their children die young, they just cannot take it and they will not go to the funeral. So, you know, it's a person's choice not to go to a funeral if that's not what they want to do. Back in 2019, one of my aunts passed away. And I used to spend my summers with this aunt up until I was like 16 or 17 years old. Love her to pieces. I had a trip planned to go to Jamaica. I didn't know she was going to die, right? I had already planned this trip to Jamaica. And so I had the choice of going to the funeral or going to Jamaica on my trip. And normally I would have canceled the trip and gone to the funeral. But I was just like, what would my aunt want me to do? Like, would she want me to cancel this trip? Like, I have so many memories with her. I have talked to her so much on the phone, even as I've gotten older and she's gotten older. Like, would she really want me to cancel this trip, or would she want me to be there at the funeral? And I believe that my aunt would have wanted me to go on my trip, and that's what I did. It didn't make me love her any less. It didn't make me love my cousins any less. It didn't, you know, look at all the times that people don't go to funerals, like people that live out of town. You know, my aunt, I had another aunt that died of COVID earlier this year, and they couldn't do a big funeral, but they brought her body from New Jersey to Tallahassee for the funeral. And some people went, some people didn't. My mom didn't go to the funeral. My aunt that lives in not too far from us and a couple of cities over, she didn't go to the funeral. There were people that couldn't travel from up north. They had another sister, you know, that didn't travel from Philadelphia to come to the funeral. It doesn't mean they didn't love their sister. It just meant that circumstances prevented them from going. And when we think about Wendy with her drug addiction and all that she's going through, and then we don't know what the relationship actually is between her and Tommie. Like, have they had a bad relationship, you know, for whatever reason? Was that, you know, exacerbated by the fact that he may have given the mother COVID and that's why the mother passed away? Like, we don't know what was going on behind the scenes. So to be judging her for whatever reason it is that she chose not to go, I think is wrong. And it takes me, you know, talking about the Black funeral, is that why is it always some mess behind Black funerals? Like, do white people go through this? Like, white people be fighting over stuff, you know, because I was thinking like maybe Wendy controlled all the mother's financial affairs, or maybe Tommie knows that now that the mother is gone, that's going to be less money for him. Like, he just seems like such a user to me. Like, he might, you know, have a drug problem just like his sister has a drug problem. And I just think that the dynamic is so great for the potential of a huge explosion between these two, that they really need to stand back and stand down. Okay, that's what Trump said. Yeah, stand back and stand down. So I don't know. It was just a crazy situation. And then Wendy was trying too hard on her show, you know, like to convince us that she had went to that funeral and that Tommie is the problem, and she got these receipts on Tommie, and Tommie and his wife need to shut up and sit down somewhere. That they told Wendy she had like 3 minutes to talk about what happened and to move on, that they weren't going to address this again on the show because this was 2 days in a row. The first time was on Monday, the second time was Tuesday. Gave her 3 minutes to address this. Wendy, I think, went on for about 8 minutes. Now, granted, all she had to say was, Tommie, you're lying. You know I was at the service. Let it go. That was all Wendy needed to say. But then Wendy went in giving us all the details about how she ended up talking to Kevin, how her and Big Kev are not getting back together, you know, how he was a source of comfort for her, and how he was the hero that saved the day, how he was the bigger man, how he got them out of the funeral home. Like, she was going on and on. And I'm like, Wendy, do you want Big Kev back? Because you're doing too much right now. You know, and so I was just like shaking my head like, girl, what is wrong with you? So then, of course, now people are reaching out to her, you know, the Entertainment Tonight and Extra are reaching out to her. And there was an interview last night where the lady asked Wendy, did she want to meet Kevin's daughter? Now, this is the daughter he didn't have with the other woman. I don't know why that lady felt the need to ask Wendy that, but Wendy let her know quick, fast, and in a hurry. No, I don't want to meet that child. What do I need to meet that child for? Like, what for? And I'm sitting there saying to myself, well, she probably asked you that even though it was highly inappropriate, but she probably asked you because word on the street is you and Kevin trying to reconcile. Now, whether you agree or disagree, whether you deny it or whatever, but people seem to think that you are lonely, Wendy, and you want your husband back. And if you do, Wendy, you know what? It's your business. It's your business. Just like whether or not you went to that funeral is your business. You don't have to lie about it. You don't have to deny it. But if you don't want people to know, just don't say nothing. Like, you didn't have to respond to Tommie. You could have let Tommie have his rant over there on that YouTube channel. Never responded to him, let him say whatever he wanted and went on about your business. But now you just done open up this can, okay? And it's just overflowing because now people are thinking that the reason Wendy is doing all of this is because she's really doing it trying to get attention on her so that she can plug that movie that's coming out in 2 weeks. Y'all know the Wendy Williams biopic is taking place on Lifetime on January 31st. So now people are starting to think that all of this is a setup and that it is just to generate buzz for the biopic. I don't know, but I just know that it's too much, Wendy. It's team too much, okay? So, Wendy, mourn your mother's passing. Tommie, mourn your mother's passing. If you gave your mother COVID, you know, that's what you need to be atoning for and not worrying about what Wendy is doing. And I agree. I watched several of your videos, Tommie, and I agree with the people that were telling you stop using your sister for the come up because you actually have a personality to do a YouTube channel. Just come up with some original content and move forward. Like, you don't have to use Wendy in order to become, you know, who you want to become. And he currently has like 13.8 thousand subscribers. And I'm sure many of them he got, you know, by doing this whole funeral story. I don't know that for certain because I didn't know he had a channel until yesterday. Okay. But whatever it is, you have 13,000 subscribers. People are tuned in to what you're talking about, Tommie. Try to, you know, get away from using your sister to elevate your platform and start capitalizing on your own personality. And I think that everything will work out fine for you. So guys, that's it for me. I just want to give my opinion on what was going on with Wendy and her brother. I need them to stop. I need them to knock it off. Wendy, I think that there were enough people at your mother's funeral that they probably could tell us whether or not you were at that funeral. But I personally, based on what you said, believe that you did not attend your mother's funeral, that you actually came in for the viewing. Oh, and then the other thing she said was she called her manager or somebody to see if he would go to Miami with her, and whoever this person was said that they weren't touching that funeral or whatever, that they weren't coming. And I believe that that might have been another reason why Wendy just went to the viewing and the wake and did not stay for the actual funeral. She probably was, felt alone, like, she was being attacked by her brother and didn't want to be there, without a support system. And she probably didn't want to make a scene at the funeral if he cut up like he did at the wake. And then she probably, has her own mental health that she needs to deal with in terms of her addiction. And maybe she felt the urge, to snort some whatever and smoke some whatever. And she thought it was best for her mental health to get out of Dodge. And so that's my opinion, and that's what I'm sticking to. So guys, go ahead, leave your comments below, rate the video, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And until the next time, I should talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.